DCM works. Fresh. It was probably a song that reminded me of it, or I'd done an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Writing is definitely an isolating thing.
From an outside perspective, that's weird as
It makes
fuck.
us look really mental.
But that is
Because of what it kind of said about art.
I had fun in bits. There were fun bits.
we went and bought a value pack of straps.
Oh my god, we did. There's a big lesson here to learn about storytelling. Hey guys, welcome back to the Art for Artists podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works. My name is David, DCM, creative director, lead writer at DCM Works, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Ben.
That was a really roundabout intro.
I had to think about what I was saying. I was like,
from DCM,
I forgot.
co-writer of DCM.
I forgot how it went. Every few weeks I forget how it goes. And this week, Ben, we're talking about the humor of Deadpool.
Cue the music.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it. What the? X gon' deliver to you. Red with the enemy. No matter how many cats I break.
That movie, that was good.
So I finally saw it. So there's a bit of a backstory between why I didn't see it when it first came out.
Because you're lazy.
Basically, I don't really care about comic book films as much as I used to. After BVS, I was a little sozzled on them.
Yeah, but Deadpool was before BVS.
Yeah, but the time. If you think about the time, I wouldn't have had time to see it before BVS.
Yeah.
So.
What was it? Yeah, it was.
I don't know. Who's
It
to
was
say?
before.
Who's to say? We have no way of checking either. But yeah, so so I didn't see it at the time because I just was not that interested.
Yeah.
And it was on iTunes, so I rented it and watched it. And
It's good,
look, it was fun.
good.
Okay, it was good.
I think it's great.
I thought it was okay. Everyone loved it. Everyone was like, "It's the best film ever. It's so funny." I didn't find it that funny. I just thought it was clever the whole time.
I didn't think it was...
Like, I never laughed, but I thought it was really clever.
I mean, because I saw it opening day in the big-ass theater.
Yeah.
So, like, you kind of get, caught up in
The general vibe.
the general vibe, so
Yeah.
you laugh at every single small joke, because everyone else is laughing.
Yeah, because you're in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think if I watched it in the same way you did, alone at home drinking beer,
Whoa.
I probably...
That's what I did, but
yeah.
that's not the point.
I probably
Fucking
wouldn't find some of the
Throwing
jokes as funny.
stones. No, like, it's not that I didn't find them funny. There was just none of them that I laughed at.
Okay.
That's like, we know what I mean. There's like a difference between thinking
David
it's
just
funny.
doesn't laugh at things.
I just punch him. No. Like the stuff I laugh at, but that's different than like a lot of the jokes were good at. They were so good that I didn't find them, like, I didn't laugh, but I found them funny. Like
You saw the
they
humor
went.
in them.
Sorry.
You saw the humor in them.
Yeah, but I didn't find them like. Because that's like the whole point of, like, I think Deadpool is like from the comic books, because he was the best when he was in the X-Men comics. I was saying to you in the car that I read X-Men a lot as a kid, and they were one of my favorite comic books. But the best part of Deadpool in the comics is that he sort of he was a little separate from everyone else, because he in his comics he breaks the fourth wall, but he can't in the X-Men comics, right?
Yeah.
I think he does it maybe once or twice every series, but he can't really. So every now and then there'll be frames where everyone will be like walking through a hallway, talking to each other.
Yeah.
And he'll, like, be looking into the corner of a room, saying something as if the camera was there.
Yeah.
And they're like, Deadpool, what an insane guy.
Yeah.
But then when you read the Deadpool comic that covers the same ground, he's talking to frame.
Yeah.
So really clever stuff like that. They did a few moments like that in the film, but I think after a while, so after about the first half hour, I guess, obviously, spoilers. It's been out for fucking ages.
Yeah.
It's been out long enough that I was watching it on iTunes.
There's not really much of a story to spoil anyway.
No, well, that's
Like,
the thing I want to.
significant
Well, that's the thing I
happens.
want to talk about as to why it's so interesting. Is that the way they structured it? They were like, okay, you've got this character who can, like, kind of narrate his own story as it's happening, and then you can jump backwards and forwards in time.
Yeah.
So what they did really well is they went, well, let's just get, like, a really straightforward superhero story. So good guy, and girl fall in love.
Girl, yeah.
Good guy has something wrong with himself, has to go away to try and fix it. Gets
Yeah.
superpowers by accident, kind of. Then good guy's girlfriend, events separate guy and girl. Girl is captured by bad guy. Good guy comes, finds friends help good guy save girl. And it sounds
They
really
live
like
happily ever
it sounds
after.
super vanilla-y, but
Yeah.
the way that they did it was really clever and interesting. And at no point was I like, oh,
This
that
great.
was really sexist that she was captured and was the person that was a hostage.
Well, yeah, because
There was no point where that happened, but it should have been.
I think a lot of it was because you don't really care. Like, the story does not matter. I mean, by the end of it, no one changes.
Well,
Like,
you don't
there's
care about the
no-
story because the characters are more interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, even Deadpool's girlfriend, whose name I can't remember. I can't remember.
Gosh, David.
All I can think of is
I can't
that
remember
chick
her
from
name.
Firefly.
I can't remember her name either.
She's so pregnant now, it's crazy. During the press tour, she was like crazy pregnant.
Great.
And every time I was like, man, that would suck having to do a press tour where you're like super duper pregnant.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I just want to lie down and die.
Your water is breaking mid-interview.
Probably not that, but probably bad. So, you know, I think there was one point where I was kind of annoyed at the humor, which the only joke that annoyed me was when Deadpool mentioned Ryan Reynolds. And everything else I was fine with. That was the one joke where I was like, I get why you did that, but I don't think it landed.
I mean, the jokes with, what's his name? The Australian guy who plays Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, like, the Hugh Jackman jokes were funny.
A lot of those were really good.
Oh, yeah, those were incredible. Like, they were funny because it's not Ryan Reynolds.
Well, because
like,
it's not... Yeah, it's not Ryan Reynolds, and in that world, Hugh Jackman isn't real. Wolverine is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
So it works really well because
But
it's like the next step over. It's the next...
Yeah.
It's like 2 Kevin Bacons away.
And he's also... you know, he's just more popular as a person.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be the kind of joke that, you know, in 10 years' time, people are going to be like, who the fuck was that? Like,
Yeah.
they won't know who he is, but we will still know because he was so, like, culturally big.
And, like,
as
even
Wolverine.
one of the things that I thought was really... One of the jokes that was clever, but I think they picked a weird time for it, was when Deadpool's being dragged away by Colossus, and he's like, I'm going to take you to see the Professor. And he goes, McAvoy or Stewart. These timelines are getting really confusing. That's a clever joke, but it was, like, at a really weird time. Like, it just happened at a weird moment. Because,
Well, it just came out of nowhere.
Because that was, like, toward the very...
Like, there's no build-up to,
it was
to the
toward...
name drop.
Because like, it's just very odd that happened. And you're like,
Whereas
no one had said the word X-Men up to that point.
Yeah,
so
whereas
the
the Wolverine jokes, he mentions Wolverine before... He makes Wolverine jokes
before
he
the Hugh
makes
Jackman
jokes.
Whereas he doesn't make a Deadpool joke before he makes a Ryan Reynolds joke.
And he doesn't make a Professor joke before he makes a, you know...
So it just kind of is weird. I think, like, I will admit, I really, like, the joke is good.
It's a good joke.
It's a good joke where he's like, yeah, Ryan Reynolds, yeah, well, you don't think that Ryan Reynolds has got this far in his acting career because of his acting alone. Like, or something like that. Basically, he's saying, like, he's not even that good looking. So it's like, because he's Hollywood handsome, he's been popular, right?
Yeah.
Because basically the way that Ryan Reynolds has become a superstar is that someone decided he would be a Hollywood movie star. Like, at some point after waiting, the film, not the period of time, someone decided that Ryan Reynolds would be a Hollywood movie star, and he just is now.
Well,
and he said that before out loud. He's like, yeah, at some point someone was like, nah, this guy. And I've just been acting ever since.
Yeah, I mean,
Because he's done a lot of stuff that's trash that we just forgive him.
Ignore. Yeah, we don't really...
Do you remember R.I.P.D.?
No, I didn't watch it.
No, good. No one did. It was terrible.
Well, it's because he's not...
It was where he was an undead ghost cop.
Oh my fucking God.
Yeah,
that sounds incredible,
and he
actually.
came back and worked for the department that hunted down ghosts, but he was a ghost cop.
Oh, I think I've seen it.
It's real
Maybe
bad.
a while back, yeah. Shit, I blanked out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think it's because he's not like A-list. He can kind of get away with that.
That's why I think so. I will say this: this movie is perfect for him. Ryan Reynolds Reynolds should make exclusively and play exclusively Deadpool until he dies.
Well,
and do nothing else.
I mean,
he's that good at
they're
it.
probably just gonna make the joke how that Hugh Jackman is always gonna be Wolverine. They might throw in that Tony Stark is always gonna be they
Robert
can't. Downey Jr.
They can't because
we had this argument. This is a tangent. We had this argument when the movie came out that
what's that?
That it was a Marvel film.
No one was having this. Okay, hang on.
We got so angry.
No one was having this argument. You were both wrong.
Yeah.
And you both were yelling at me, and I'm like, no, this isn't an argument. This is just because it was one of those things where in my mind I was like, it's not an argument because it's actually just a fact. It's just a fact.
But it's so
It's not that complicated, Ben.
But it feels like a Marvel film.
It's
except for the pacing.
It's not that complicated, Ben.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, but it's got the quality of a Marvel film. It doesn't suck.
Well, no, the reason it doesn't suck, and I have a few theories. Obviously, because Ryan Reynolds was like, he's perfect for the role.
Yeah.
But the other big reason is that they looked at literally everything that had been done with X-Men up to that point. They went, let's not make any of those mistakes. So, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who I'll talk about in a minute, has a yellow X-Men costume.
Yeah.
Colossus looks exactly like he does in the comic books. And
i.e. dumb.
Yeah, but like literally exactly how he does in the comic books. He's giant, he's made of metal, and I think his CGI looked great in that film.
I think it looked alright.
For the budget, it looked like that's the other thing. All the CGI in this film looked great for the budget.
Oh yeah,
they had no money.
And that's
why this film was so good, is because they couldn't, they had to be like, okay, well, what are the best?
That's why they had Super whatever her name was, Super Nega Warhead.
Okay, Negasonic Teenage Warhead. So let's talk about her as a comic book character.
Negasonic or
Negasonic?
Why?
Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Okay, so in the comic books,
Does she exist? I thought she was a
sort of,
throwaway
not
character.
really.
Yeah.
So there's a character in the comic books called Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Has none of the character in the film's powers. Shows up once in a brief run of comics, and then again in like when everyone comes back as a zombie. But has no similar powers at all. They just gave Negasonic Teenage Warhead in the film Cannibal's powers, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's fun, and it's great, and she
cool.
has a yellow X-Men costume, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Colossus, them as a team was great, because she's just this pouty teenager. I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
that was fun.
I mean, like, most of the jokes about her were funny. The tweeting one was bad because it was spoiler in the trailer.
See, the interesting thing is, I thought one of the best jokes,
I thought the best joke was the prom night one. Like, the best joke in the
yes,
film
but that was in the
prom night
that was in
one.
the trailers as well.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. That's the problem with that film. Is like a lot of those,
those
but you have to
really
sell
good
it.
jokes.
So it's
Yeah.
That being said, there are a lot of films that I go and see that where I haven't seen the trailers. So we talked about this when we talked about Civil War, but the best part of that is at the very end with the twist where Robert Downey Jr. fights Chris
That's
Evans'
more of a
character.
rug pull.
But that's spoiled in the trailers because you
Spoiled
know
in the
that.
trailers.
So
You know
it's
they're gonna
yeah,
fight, yeah.
which is like ugh. But you know,
bit
it's
like
sort of
that.
annoying. But then
Yeah.
Deadpool, like, because I hadn't really seen any of the trailers. I just saw the first trailer that came out for it when
The
it
only-
first was announced.
The only trailer I saw was the fucking Australia Day trailer.
The Australia Day trailer.
You haven't seen the Australia.
No.
They did a run of trailers of Ryan Reynolds wearing the Deadpool costume with like an Outback hat with the corks on the strings,
That's
which
amazing.
no one fucking wears.
Yeah.
And he's like putting on a really bad Australian accent. Like
That's
that
amazing.
sounds more British than Australian.
Yep.
And he's like, he's saying just dumb shit like throw another shrimp on the barbie for me. Just
Yeah, yeah.
dumb like Australian
Yeah,
names.
it's great. I didn't know that
And
happened.
like it's probably one of the only good like purposely Australian sort of joke trailers I've ever seen. It's just him sitting down
yeah, yeah.
and like at the end of
sounds
it
like him.
he just like freaks out at the hat. He's
Yep.
just like he's like looking around and one of the corks like knocks him in the head. And he obviously can't see very well in the mask.
Yeah.
And so he's like, and it's basically, it's probably wasn't scripted. He's like looking around and one of the corks like knocks him in the head. He just like fucking flips out and throws the hat on the ground. He's just like, what the fuck was that? And you can hear in like the background, like one of the producers just laughing.
Loving.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, it was a real, like, that's the only trailer I saw. And I was like, yeah, I'll see Deadpool.
I saw all of those posters around town, which were like pretending it was a romantic comedy.
Oh yeah, no, those were
They were
incredible.
great.
Yeah,
I thought those
yeah.
were very funny.
Like the font and everything, and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that one of the best parts of that film.
Well, the whole film that he's saying this is because it came out Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
The whole
Well,
film was like this.
it's a
like
love
it
story.
opened up. He's like, yeah, this is a love
Well,
story.
because well, the thing is, like, but
'Cause it
for-
is.
But for Wade Wilson, that's his version of a love story.
Yeah.
That's the best. Like, that's the best part about his character. He's just insane, And
Yeah.
I think they did a lot of the stuff before he was Deadpool incredibly well.
Yeah, they built up his character good. Because if they, if
Even the fact that when that interaction where he scares the pizza
kid,
boy,
yeah, the pizza
and then he
kid.
goes and visits the girls at the skate ring,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Can you fuck up my stepdad?" as he's walking away, and he's like, "No, I don't know what he says," and she goes, "Oh well, you're my hero," He goes, "Not today," or I can't think of what he says, or he says, "I
Yeah.
don't think so," and then walks away or whatever. That should be on the nose, but because of the delivery and the framing, it just really works.
well, it just kind of came and went, and it was good framing, and like, because when you're watching it, you're just waiting for Deadpool, and you're like, that stuff just kind of goes in and like sits in the back of your mind, but it's not like. Yeah, it's not on the nose. It doesn't stick out.
I think it's because they made the character of Wade Wilson similar enough to when he becomes Deadpool
It's
that
not
they're
just
not
like,
like
what?
different people.
Yeah.
Like
It's not like the mask.
yes,
Yeah.
which is insane. Or like one of the biggest problems I had with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films is that he's a little like he's too confident as a teenager. When he puts on the mask, there's not much difference really.
Which isn't what Spider-Man.
Whereas Spider-Man,
yeah.
like in the Civil War, he's just like this awkward dork.
Yeah.
Who's like trying to fit in or whatever. And then when he's Spider-Man, he's still an awkward dork, but he's kicking ass.
Yeah.
And Wade Wilson's kind of the same, where he's just this cunt mercenary, and he puts on the mask, and he just gets even cuntier. But nothing else really changes. He and I think one of the best moments of that whole film is the two taxi rides. First of all, because they're hilarious, but second of all, because he forgets the duffel bag both times.
Yeah.
duffel bag of guns,
Well,
and he's like the only superhero where you can make that happen.
forgets the duffel bag of guns.
Captain America is never forgetting his bag of guns. He
Well, he doesn't
won't.
have a bag of guns. That's
But if
the
he
thing.
did, you know, Batman's not forgetting the grapple gun.
Yeah.
Whereas
Like-
Wade Wilson, when Deadpool forgets a bag of guns, you're like, of course he does. He's a fucking idiot. Then
Well,
he's like,
that-
oh, I get 12 bullets.
Well,
Shit.
not only that, he calls up the the same taxi guy who he has in his contacts.
Yeah.
And then when it comes up on the taxi driver's screen, it's Mr. Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like...
It's great.
Why?
Every part of that is so
I
fantastic.
mean, I think that interaction with the taxi man, the 2 times it happens, is probably one of the funniest characterizations of just a complete side character in any film. Because, you know, when you first see him, he's kind of just made a throwaway character. But at the start, but then they have this dialogue, and he
becomes this
he
really
becomes this
interesting
really
character.
interesting character, and you're like, and he goes, and Deadpool does his thing, and like, you're like, oh, okay, that was kind of funny, but then he comes back, you're like, yeah,
It's
like,
back-
I love this
and
dude.
he's, you know, someone said this to me the other day, because I was talking to them about it after I saw it, and they were like, yeah, well, he's a really interesting character, because I hadn't thought about this, because I don't really think about films after I've watched them.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, well, because this bloke I was talking to was from Sri Lanka, and he was like, yeah, well, that's like a really great example of representation in a film that isn't like forced.
Yeah.
He was just an Indian driver that's probably a cab driver that's probably Indian. We don't know, but it doesn't matter because he's still a character.
Yeah.
Who just happens to be a nationality.
Yeah.
And it's fun because he's a cab driver, and that's like a little bit cheeky that it's like, oh,
It's
you
a
got
little
a
bit sneaky,
got an
yeah.
Indian cab driver, but
Yeah.
then it works because he's still a character, and then it gets even better.
He has a story, like he has like a reason to live
Yes.
in the film.
He exists beyond being a taxi driver,
Yeah.
and that's a really fun sort of...
It's just good.
And it's so well done. And
Yeah.
I think that's why that film really succeeds, is that all the characters in it, they really clearly thought about it, how they're going to kind of sit in the... You know, it's that idea of, like... you know, in Lord of the Rings, when they talk about, like, they give the armor to the cast, and the cast can kind of, like, mark it up and ding it up
Yeah.
themselves, so that it looks like it's existed longer than when you press play on the camera.
Yeah.
That Deadpool felt a lot like that with the characters themselves, as
Yeah.
if they'd sort of existed for like 5 years before they hit record.
It's almost like it's like a D&D campaign.
Yes.
where you
It's
have
some
your
backstory.
characters and they have a backstory,
Yeah, and
so
you-
that when you start, it's not a fresh palette. It's
Yeah.
actually something that's a bit
You've got a
worn.
character that exists a
Yeah,
little
bit
bit.
used.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's sort of... I think that characterizes the humor, and that's why it works so well, is that none of it... I mean, there are a few empty jokes, but they're empty because that's what Deadpool does, and that's why it's funny. Like a lot of the juvenile jokes are juvenile because Deadpool knows they are, and it's really, like, that's the whole
Yeah.
point of the character, is that he can make... That was
That
unpleasant.
was gross.
He can make, like, dick jokes, but the funny part of the dick joke isn't the dick joke, it's that Deadpool is making a dick joke, and that he knows better.
Yeah.
Like, because it's very sort of, like, self-aware.
I got like none of the jokes with the blind woman. They all just went way over my head.
There was a lot.
And there was a lot of them. And I think that was because
They-
I've never read the comics for Deadpool.
See, they went really, there was a lot of them really, really quick.
Yeah, is she
like
a,
this
is she
rapid
an
succession.
actual character in the, or is she a
I
film
don't
character?
think so.
Wow, because they really present her like an actual important.
I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Not from memory. I don't
no,
think she is.
yeah, because she. I mean, I'd probably go back and actually pay attention to that a bit more. But that was all very confusing.
It was a lot of, like, implied stuff that you should know about Wade Wilson as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even the fact that he goes to live with her. So here's the thing.
Well, I mean, the joke is that he lives with her because he's fucking butt ugly and she's blind.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
that's the surface level joke.
But
Like, that makes sense.
the parallel of that is that his relationship with his girlfriend is one such that looks don't matter. So it's like an inversion of that where looks can't matter because he's hideous and she's blind.
Yeah.
So it's a literal inversion of the relationship he had with his girlfriend. But the other thing that we didn't see, which is crazy because it ties the whole film together, is there's this sequence that was cut out from the final film that is where he goes on like a cancer tour to like go and do experimental drugs and stuff
Oh yeah.
with his girlfriend before he goes to the British guy. And
So,
I haven't
like-
seen all of the scene, but basically their relationship starts to break down because she can't deal with the fact that he's dying. So when he
Yeah,
leaves,
because it kind of comes out of nowhere of the whole.
well, not
Yeah,
even
I'm gonna go try this thing.
well, not even that, but the fact that then when he's ugly, he doesn't just go back to her because their relationship is so based on the fact that they get each other personality-wise.
Yeah.
It's never been about the fact that they're both very good-looking. It's about the fact that they have like a connection.
Well, for one, she thinks he's dead and he looks butt ugly. So it's
But like, yeah, but there's no like in the film itself. If you don't include that scene, there's no real reason why he wouldn't go back. If you think about the kind of relationship they
Yeah.
had, particularly at the end, the way she reacts, you're like, yeah, of course she would. But she would have done that before as well. So that's just one of those things where they clearly ran out of time in the edit, or they couldn't use.
Well,
it
they
for
must
whatever
have just
reason.
been like, they don't want they don't want to have the reveal of he's still alive before she gets captured.
Well,
And they held that off.
but again, that including that sequence does that without it just being for no reason.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that was an odd choice, but knowing that, it all makes a lot more sense. But even as it was, I thought it was fine. That's because the plot was so simple.
Yeah. Like
They were like, if we're gonna do this crazy jumping back and forward thing, we're gonna keep things real simple, and they did, and I think it really worked.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to follow, which means you can actually focus on the good parts, which is the jokes.
And the characters as well. You can focus on dialogue. You're not like, oh, what's happening? You know, you just kind of go, oh, that was funny. Oh, how's she gonna like? You
Yeah,
sort of
there's literally like 5 characters in the film.
Yeah, and they
and then just a scattering of like
sort of
2 or 3 side characters.
support it. Yeah, and I think the cool thing about that is that you get to know them as the film goes on.
Yeah,
but not in a sort of not in the way that you would with like say like you know, like we're at like film 8 or 10 or something with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
So we know what Captain America's gonna do. We know how Iron Man behaves. We know those characters really well.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas with this, we sort of had a limited time to get to know them, but they were so well characterized and so well acted
that you
just kind of were like, oh, I know how this character's gonna be.
Yeah.
You know,
a
I've
lot
got
of
an
it probably
impression.
drew on just sort of, you know, it's a film that assumed that the people watching it are just human beings. Also above the age of 18, because it is an R18 film, so they had that where they were sort of able to
be a little more like not really
to not be like, oh, there's going to be kids, so we have to explain it for the kiddies.
They just
like you can
kind of
just
move through
assume
stuff.
that adults are going to be watching this film, so you can just throw things at them.
And even the fact that when a great example of this is when he first gets out of the cab and he has no money, and they high five, and then Deadpool just leaves, and that's because this cab driver is smart enough to know that the guy with the guns and the swords isn't. You probably don't want to ask him to pay.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just let him go.
Yeah.
That, but in a kids film, you'd have to add a line about that.
Yeah.
You'd have to be like, oh, you can. Do you have a you know,
like a take retake where you like show his face and then he looks back at the bag and then he goes back to his face. You have to do a dumb joke like
whereas,
that, which wouldn't fit.
in Deadpool
Those
just
things
lets,
aren't
just
funny.
lets you go.
Yeah, just goes.
He just gets out of the cab and he gives
Yeah.
him a sweet high five, crisp high five.
Yeah,
And then
he
a
goes.
crisp 10 later, which is great. The other thing that I thought was really good is there was one. So maximum effort is one of Deadpool's catchphrases, which he uses ironically in the comics.
Yeah.
They did a really good job in this of not using it ironically, and just letting it be the only earnest part of his character. When he says maximum effort in the
When
film,
does he say it? He says it
toward the start. I can't think of exactly when. I think when he does the triple headshot, maybe, I'm not sure.
No.
He says it. I know he definitely says it at the
It's-
very end with when the helicarrier is sort of falling, and then he's got the thing, and then he pulls it.
Yeah.
And he goes maximum effort, and it's really earnest. He says it a few times throughout the film, but I can't think of exactly when.
It's kind of it's the kind of thing where it's just like, you know, if you have characters who are like, it's really similar to One Punch Man, which is a bit of a side take. There's all these characters and they're all just like basically just ridiculous anime caricatures. So whenever they do like their super attack, they're just like, you know, like 1,000 suns strike and whatever, and they do something really epic. Whereas One Punch Man, he'll be like consecutive normal punches, and it's just a lot of normal punches.
That's great.
It's the same kind of thing with maximum effort, where it's just like, it's kind of just like, yeah, he's just putting a lot of effort in, but he's still doing something crazy.
And he's saying it out loud.
Yeah, and
that's
he's
the
just
best part.
Yeah, that's the best part, is that it's like, you know, he's like performing a super move.
But it works for him because he calls out everything as it happens. So, I think that works because it's really honest. There are some bits which I think don't work where he does stuff that shouldn't, like, it shouldn't be funny, but you just kind of forget and let it go. Like when they're coming across the when they're coming to the helicarrier and the British guy's on top and he's looking down at them and he's like,
Yeah.
you know, there's like the confrontation with all the SWAT guys or whatever. And the woman drops down and Deadpool gets excited for the superhero landing.
Yeah.
That should have been funny, but it just felt like weird.
It kind of the payoff wasn't worth it. You know, he was like, oh, wait for it, the superhero drop's coming, and then she does it, and it's like, that's like halfway through the joke. But then after like all he says in props is like, oh, there it is, haha, and you're like,
He should have
done something funny.
It should have been like, oh, that wasn't that impressive. Like,
Yeah,
it should have been
he should have been like, you
something
know,
less earnest.
like if he'd been like, you know, said something about like, you know, made like a gymnast joke, where it's just like, oh, it was good form, but you didn't stick the landing, like something like that,
Yeah.
like something to finish the 3 parts of the joke.
Yes, you didn't
because
get
the
that,
2
though.
parts are there. The third part just kind of
Just no real
fizzles
payoff.
out.
Yeah. So that happens maybe once or twice. I think by and large the humor's pretty on point, but they kind of use it to make the story work, and also to just kind of make the story.
Yeah.
Like a lot of even the fact that Wade Wilson's a cunt. That is why he has this relationship with Vanessa, who's the character's name I've just remembered. at 25 minutes in.
Well, Vanessa.
Is the girlfriend's name.
It's a very generic name.
But she then gets a spoiler. She gets a superhero name later on.
Oh, what is it?
I can't think of what it is. She has
Captain Vanessa?
No, she has like mind control powers. I can't think of what it is.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, so Vanessa is the relationship between them relies on the fact that he's an asshole and she's an asshole.
Yeah.
So when the all of the humor that surrounds them isn't just them making jokes, it's them like connecting.
Well, I mean,
because
most of their on-screen time is them fucking.
But it's not. Well, not real. But not really.
What?
See, that's the thing. Like, it is, but it's not. It's more about like the context of their interactions together.
Yeah.
So it's about the fact that they have that length of time. We get that like montage,
Where they have sex for a year.
which is great. 'Cause that's a really clever way of doing it, and you get like the different days. It's a clever way of passing time. But the reason that works is because it's very good characterization of the different kinds of sex they're having and the interactions they have before and after, and the way that they frame it.
They pull out the goddamn International Women's Day joke as well.
And like that's really that's funny and clever, but it also tells you a lot about Wade Wilson and Vanessa and like the way their relationship works and like it's just really well considered and well written, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And my biggest problems with the film are kind of not really big problems at all. They're just small stuff. Like I thought I wanted to see more of the bartender. I thought he was interesting.
Yeah, well, he gets shit all.
Yeah, and he's a pretty
past the first.
He's a fairly
10
important
minutes.
character in the comic books. You know, he's sort of Wade's confidant.
He's Wade's butler essentially.
Effectively, he's like the equivalent of Alfred, but he's a dick. So
yeah, but he's a
great.
douchebag.
So Deadpool will be like, "Oh, I've got to go do this thing," and he's like, "No, I didn't ask. I don't know why you're telling me."
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, like my gripes were pretty small. I think
Yeah.
the scene in the laundromat where he breaks the fourth wall twice. Never been done in a film before, sure, but it wasn't funny.
Well, then he makes the joke. He's like, "That's like 16 walls," and I'm like, "No, it's more like 8 walls." Like,
but that's one of the jokes is that Wade can't do math.
well, that's 4
one of the
times
long-running-
4.
Yeah, I know.
It's like it's
Well, no,
mathematically correct. It's
but
just
it's
kind of
not.
logically weird.
Yeah. I mean, the
I mean, if he had been like, "That's like 50 walls," and that would have been funnier because then he is bad at math.
one of the best parts of the X-Men comic books is when Wolverine or someone will be like, "Oh, there's only like 16 seconds, so the bomb detonates." And then someone will be like, "Oh, it's been 10 seconds." And Wade will go, "That's fine, we've still got 20 seconds left." And they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Deadpool?" He's like, "Huh? Shit, bomb's about to go off." That's always fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I did enjoy it. I thought it was, the humor really makes it work.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't have the humor, it would just be the most bog
No, but I mean, no,
the X-Men, the X-Men Origin Wolverines all over again.
That's kind of why. Well, what I mean when I say the humor makes it work is that like, it's the film is built on humor, but the humor is so good that it kind of, it really takes what it could have been.
It doesn't feel like a bad American comedy film. It feels like a legitimate, just entertaining film.
It feels like a good, funny superhero film.
Yeah,
and that's because they went, "We're gonna make it. We're gonna
like
keep."
It's almost like a funny Hancock.
Okay. So Hancock is a great example of when you go, okay, we're gonna do a superhero film based on a character that has existed, but we're not gonna really do it the way that it did exist, and it's not gonna work. Because don't get me wrong, I don't mind Hancock. I think it's a fun film.
I think it's average.
But Deadpool works because they went, here's the character in the comics. We're going to exactly do it in the comics, but only the bits that work really well as a film.
And then we're going to make it a good film. Like, it's a good film.
Yes, it's really solid.
It's filmed well.
I know that's, I think, a big part made by Ryan Reynolds. Like, he just is perfect in that role.
I mean, he was part of pretty much everything of the filming. Like, he was even part of the marketing.
Yeah. Well, because he got the funniest. If you look into it, if you have any time, anyone listening, if you have look into like the interviews with him about X-Men Origins Wolverine, where he basically got blackmailed into being Deadpool.
Yeah.
Because they were like, "Oh, we're putting Deadpool in." And he was like, "Great, I'll do it. Like I've always wanted to do it. You know, I have."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, well, we're gonna sew his mouth shut and he'll have swords for hands." And he was like, "That's the worst idea ever." And they're like, "Oh, well, we'll just get someone else." And he was like, "Fuck, fine, okay, fine,
fine, yeah." But now they can make jokes about it, so it's alright.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very solid.
It's out on like DVD and stuff now.
Yeah, it's on Blu-ray. I just rented it on iTunes because it's like the cheapest way to do it if you only want to watch it once.
That's how late we are to this party.
Yeah, well, it's stuff happens.
BVS happened and we were like, nah.
Yeah, BVS happened and we were like, nah, die, gotta go die quietly. Yeah, let us know what you thought. If you have any sort of opinions on Deadpool or if you think we're too late, hit us up on hashtag AFApod or just at DCM_works on Twitter.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. Shout outs as always to Brendan A. McQuaid, big supporter of the show. Always
Huzzah.
donates, doing the people's work. And yeah, if you want to sort of contact us for anything else, all that stuff is in the show notes. Check out our YouTube channel. We're in the middle of Dark Souls over at the Coffee House channel. Got a whole bunch of stuff going on, mate. But yeah, so we'll see you guys next week for probably more, not Deadpool, but something else, guaranteed or not.
Bye.
Yeah, it was probably a song that reminded me of it, or I done an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Writing is definitely an isolating thing.
From an outside perspective, that's weird as
It makes
fuck.
us look really mental.
But that is
Because of what it kind of said about art.
I had fun in bits. There were fun bits.
We went and bought a value pack of straps.
Oh my god, we did. There's a big lesson here to learn about storytelling.